Hello everyone, welcome back to book club. We're back. I'm 19. Thank you all for wishing me happy birthday. That was really sweet of you. And what a better way to celebrate than do Tennessee Williams, who I am such a big fan of. But that being said, I had never read Streetcar Named Desire before this week. And it just felt like it was time for me to do it. And I thought, if there's anyone else out there that hasn't read it, then you should do it with me. And it's fun. It's a play. It's very short. The back and forth is really awesome. And this play was actually first performed on Broadway in 1947 and then was later adapted into a film in 1951, which actually won 4 Academy Awards and also won the Pulitzer Prize in 1948. This kind of was the play that established Tennessee Williams as, one of the greatest young playwrights of his generation. So the story follows Blanche, who is kind of an aging Southern debutante who loses her family estate, her job, and her reputation, and kind of seeks refuge in her estranged sister, Stella, and her brother-in-law, Stanley. And right away, Stanley and Blanche kind of start clashing and fighting for Stella's allegiance, which is a very fun back and forth throughout the whole play. A note, actually, in the original play, Blanche's husband committed suicide after being discovered having a gay affair, but that was removed from the film. So a quick backstory on Tennessee Williams, for those of you who don't know. Tennessee was a playwright. He wrote a lot of award-winning plays like The Glass Menagerie, Streetcar Named Desire, and Cat on a Hot Tin Roof was another one. He's really known for his gritty characters and heartbreaking storylines, which really comes across in this play, and that's kind of what made his plays American classics. He was known as Tom growing up, and he had kind of a troubled childhood. He was really close with his older sister, Rose, who actually suffered from a mental breakdown. And a lot of people say that was the inspiration for this character, Blanche, in the play. He was really ahead of his time. He was openly experimenting with both men and women in the 50s. He was a really big part of the gay social scene in New York. And the New Yorker actually called him the man who queered Broadway, which I think is amazing. I am very excited to have Brandon on here today to talk about this, because Brandon, I'm just gonna freak out about Brandon for a second, and I'm sorry, you all just have to hear it, because Brandon is an incredible actor, so I was like, if we're doing a play, I need Brandon on here. Also just an activist, one of my dearest friends, an incredible human, and I'm just very excited to talk to Brandon about this, because I felt like it was literally the perfect person to have on to do this with. So I'm gonna bring Brandon on here. After I raved about him for 20 minutes. Hi, babe.
Keep going.
I could go on forever. And then you'd have no time. You look so cute. You look like you could be in the play right now.
I tried going for Marlon
You're giving me Marlon Brando.
Family realness, and then a little Tennessee Williams here.
That is Tennessee too. I mean, it's actors. We have to love that. Are you kidding me? Brandon.
Happy birthday.
Brandon, this is supposed to be about you. I'm gonna cry.
You can't help it.
I love you. Thank you.
I love you. What a time to be alive. And it's a lot more special that you're around.
Oh, another year around the sun. Thank you. That's actually so cute that you did that. Also, I would like to tell everyone, Brandon and I our dogs are brother and sister, which is adorable.
Which makes us parents together.
We are parents, yeah. How is Mo?
She's good. She's big.
Milo's huge and heavy.
Kind of looks like a possum. I'm not gonna.
Milo does too. He looks like a little meerkat.
Little long face.
They grew up
I'm
in
here.
front of our eyes.
Yeah.
It's wild. Well,
I know. A Streetcar Named Desire. That's your first time reading it?
yes. Is that
Wow.
crazy? I know. I know. But you've read it, I'm sure.
Read it like a good amount of times, and it was really fun to go back and kind of like reacquaint myself. And I rewatched the movie too.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen the movie yet because I didn't want it to like interfere.
I want to watch the movie together.
I'll watch the movie with you.
The,
I've just
very similar.
That's what I've heard. It's like pretty straight on.
Yeah. You know, they designed the play was designed to with the set to be very small. So it was just sort of the apartment with the two bedrooms, and then you could see the strip of street that was in front of the apartment. And
Okay,
Tennessee.
so it's just kind of like a set.
Yeah, so the movie, like you kind of have no way to escape that, and it holds a lot of
Right.
in the story as well, in terms of like what's visible and what's not visible.
Right. And like the piano kind of being a character itself. I like honestly, the stage directions in this play are insane. Like the excerpts when it explains the scene is like I've never read a play where it was so descriptive.
Tennessee Williams is iconic with that. Like, the Glass Menagerie is also just very similar. Like though you could probably write a short story with just the stage direction.
Right. Like you feel like you're reading a book and not just a play, which I actually really appreciated.
Yeah.
That you did that. Is this your favorite Tennessee Williams play, or do you have one? You're gonna make people mad either way, so.
I know. This one is so good. I mean, I really like the Glass Menagerie a lot. It
Yeah.
is such a good story, but also just like the telling of it is it's so close to perfect that you're
Mhm.
like, how did anyone do this? And I mean, Tennessee Williams is so special just because his life is so specific, and like the characters in his real life are so alive in
Yeah.
all in his plays. So he just all his plays are so good. I think
Yeah.
this one is definitely up there. And I think
Yeah.
talk about certain things, like people will also see like it's just very grounded in like a lot of what was happening in the world and what is still happening in the world.
No, it's wild reading it in such a different climate now. Like, you know, the whole social class underlying theme, and then there's like the just I mean the way that Stella and Stanley's relationship is very problematic. And like reading, I feel like when you go back and read literature that was written, you know, 40s, 50s, it really does sometimes it ages very poorly. But it also is interesting to see that like this is actually what was going on at the time and kind of
Yeah,
how we've changed or haven't changed.
completely. So much is still the same. So much it obviously is like weighted in so much importance from
Mm-hmm.
post-war perspective, especially
Mm-hmm.
with men and women.
Mm.
Um, but like the underlying of what still is occurring today is so there, and it's so funny because this movie actually, I know we'll go to the play,
Mm-hmm.
but movie um not only was so like well received for the story, but what it did in terms of like the acting industry and like what Marlon Brando did.
Right. He was kind of the first person to do that sort of acting that wasn't so like theater acting. It was very real. It was very like he would like scratch his back and like yeah,
Yeah,
I did guiltily look up some Marlon Brando scenes from the movie
it's shocked.
because I had to.
I know. I ended up looking up like the Roger Ebert, the like he does all the like really famous movie critiques, and he like
Oh
critiques
really?
and critiques Marlon Brando's acting, and it's really like he's like, just watch him, like when he walks into the apartment it completely changed the world of acting.
Yeah.
And it's kind of true. Like he really does do remarkable work and makes this character who like is not likable. He's like this Walter.
Mm-mm.
He's like from what's that show?
What, Breaking Bad?
Breaking Bad, yeah. it's like they're not likable, but
Right.
like so invested in them, and part of it has to do with the what Marlon Brando did, and to make him so like, oh, I know this guy.
It reminded me a bit of Burn This. I don't know if you've seen that, but when Adam Driver played the main character in it, he's a very like aggressive man, but you end up like he has anger issues and he's not a likable character, but I think there's something in the acting that does kind of
Yeah.
get that across. And I think it's interesting because reading this play, um, before doing a lot of research about Tennessee Williams, obviously I knew a bit about him. Like it's told from a very heteronormative point of view, which I think is interesting that he was able to really get that across when he was not a heteronormative person himself.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's trying to like, there's such a, even today we still have this like conversation openly, but also like I have this with myself a lot. Like, what is the way to tell stories about like, my queer identity or others' queer identity, or
Right.
stories of like marginalized people? And really, like, it always goes back to this conversation with myself where it's like, what this play does so great, even though we at first I hear like it's told through a heteronormative perspective, I go like, "Ah," but really it's like it holds a mirror up to nature. Shakespeare talks about that. Like that's what art is,
Mhm.
hold a mirror up for people.
Mhm.
And that's kind of what this play does. It shows you, Stella and Stanley's relationship, where Stella kind of has no questions about how she's being treated,
Right.
or no qualms really, but actually, and no investigation towards her. Like, there's the amazing thing where she's talking about like on their wedding night, he takes her slipper and starts smashing all the bowls
Yeah.
on and she's like, um, Blanche is like, did you not run around and scream? And
Yeah.
no, it thrilled me. Um,
Yeah. I think it's very interesting the difference in the way that Blanche thinks men should treat her and Stella thinks men should treat her. Like they have very different views on that, I feel.
yes, I mean, different and oddly, maybe not. We see like Blanche is kind of the foreigner. She becomes the foreign character walking into someone else's space,
Right.
which makes it very easy for us to not know everything that's going on with her.
Right.
But slowly start to find out that she's a sexual deviant as well. Like she has all this,
Mhm.
you know, she has this taboo sex and this oh God, I'm trying to think of a good word, but basically she's out there getting laid just like everyone else. But she has such an idea of how she needs to be perceived in someone else,
Mhm.
in a male dominated space as well.
Right.
Um, that Stella doesn't really need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think she is very worried about perception and I think that also is a theme that showed up a lot in those times when women especially were expected to act a certain way and that way was to please men. And so I think Blanche is a great example of that of kind of creating an illusion around her life to be presented in a different way.
Yeah. And it shows up in a couple different ways. It shows up through class as well, with inherited money, um,
Mhm.
and then losing the inheritance. Immediately, Blanche's solution is to find a man.
Right. Right. And it's not, there isn't a moment of like, what can I do to make myself comfortable? It's like, I need to find a man. And even, when she meets Mitch, her first idea is, all right, like, I need to um, basically marry this man so that I can be taken care of.
Marry him, but that's also after the first like initial questions of like, what does he do?
Yeah. Right. What's
Like
his status?
exactly. Yeah.
It is. It's so interesting. And then I think there's this whole theme of mental health also that wasn't, you know, Tennessee didn't say it straight on, but Blanche is really struggling with mental health. And then you see someone like Stanley come in and the way that he treats her and how that is affecting her mental state. I mean, you see her throughout the book getting worse and worse and worse.
She deep dives into it, and we have such, there's definitely like an understanding that she is living in a lot of illusion, and she
Right.
creates illusion. Um, but again, holding the mirror up to nature, like even today, we don't tend to just immediately have an understanding about mental health or what is actually happening in
Mm-hmm.
to take our own outliers, the things that lie in our lives, and put them onto someone. It's so Stanley does that with Blanche, in which
Right.
he like strips her of her dignity by like gossiping about her. uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we as the audience start to like, oh wait, but is this mental illness real? Is it what she has? Is it what
Right.
putting
Or
on?
is it lies? Is it manipulation? I think that's something to play around with. And I also found it interesting because during those times, you know, gay people had to hide and create an illusion around themselves to be accepted within society. So I think Blanche's character is almost, you could say, a reflection of that, how she had to create an entire illusion and perception in various instances, and just to kind of fit in with society.
Yeah, and it's interesting, again, going back to like her whole thing is to protect her image from being deviant and from being
Mm-hmm.
proprietary. And there's it comes up when she's talking about, like she finds her husband who
Mm-hmm.
killed himself. She finds him in bed with another man, an older man, which is also a different, it's, there's age.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they end up going out and dancing to get all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like this immediate thing of like everything is fine. And then
Yeah. And do
that's,
you think that was a sort of, I don't want anyone to think anything of this, so we're gonna pretend like nothing happened?
I think, yes. I think like we are so used to like, I don't doubt that she loved him. Like that's how as an actor, I go into each character
Mm-hmm.
thinking they love everyone.
Yeah.
That's what happens. We are born to love.
Right.
Um, the hatred and stuff is all taught.
Right.
And so she probably loves her husband. And this is the way we know how to protect each other. Oh, okay. Well, we won't let this cat out of the bag.
Right.
We'll keep the gay in the closet.
Mm-hmm.
And but then society plays on her, and she says, "You disgust me." They're out
Right.
dancing.
I think she turns with everyone because at the end of the day, she's protecting herself.
Right.
And that was, yeah, which was, I think it's interesting reading things like that now because unfortunately it still happens. I think we're very much in a bubble that is very open and very accepting. But to understand that this is something that people have to go through and had to go through, where that would be that big of a deal, that much of like a life-shattering event.
And the brilliant thing too is that what Tennessee Williams does is that he has other characters reveal Blanche's like even her own perception of her own self-disgust, like her own sexual prowess, her own sexual taboos
Mm-hmm.
that she persecuted her dead husband for.
Yeah.
She contains them. It may
Yeah.
not look like gay, but it
Right.
looks infidelity and secrecy and all these things
Yeah.
that even today heterosexual people put on gaze, but still contained within their own
within themselves.
in their own selves. Yeah.
It's this denial of desire that Blanche portrays, and it's so interesting, yeah, because it definitely is still something that is placed on especially the queer community. But for Blanche to be doing that to someone and then receive that herself, and can't handle it. She can't, because she is technically a heteronormative character in the play.
Yeah.
So I thought like Tennessee's sort of way to be like, flip it back on her, be like, this is what you did to somebody.
Yeah.
And she couldn't handle it, you know?
No. And yeah. Yeah.
Which I think, and then there's so much of this sort of class thing between Stanley and Blanche, and how Blanche looks down on Stanley, right? And she also doesn't understand why Stella would be with someone who didn't have the class, who didn't have the money. And it's interesting, you know, how Stella's like, loves him. And, you know, their relationship is very far from perfect or even acceptable. You know, when he's outside being like, Stella, Stella. But it is like there are different views on what a man should do for a woman. And also, I think Blanche is kind of rude to Stanley a lot of the time and talks down on him, because he's not, you know, technically the suitor that she would choose.
Well, he's, as she calls him, common. He's common, and you know, you see this as it's a big thing for Stanley too, who even is, you know, of Polish descent, and makes it very clear of how proud he is to be in this country. A hardworking, you know, that's there's illusion, there's reality, there's money, and there's poverty. And from Stanley's perspective is he's a hard worker. He makes ends meet. He's gonna bring the baby is gonna come into the world, and there's no question about it, because he only knows how to make things work.
Right.
And it's funny because Blanche's idea of class almost has to do with attitude. It has to do with perception. It has to do with, she's poor.
Yeah.
She is flat out poor and has nothing except illusion.
Yeah. And she says this great quote where she's like, I have always depended on the kindness of strangers. So showing that sort of dependency, especially from women at the time. You know, Blanche on her own doesn't have anything. She's lost everything. And then she looks at someone who may not have everything, but has a life and has a family and is working, and she looks down on that person. And I think that's a great sort of reflection of how people can create this illusion for themselves and then actually believe it and live it and treat other people poorly to continue with this illusion.
And to never never formulate what joy and love and happiness mean for themselves. I think that's
Right.
like essentially we watch Blanche do that. Like, she desires so much that she may have once had, but it's never anything that is steeped in anything probable or real. It's all fabricated desires.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a big discussion in Tennessee Williams that this desire equivocates to death. Even, you know, a streetcar, that's like,
Yeah.
she has to take the streetcar desire to, you know, cemetery, and then get off at Elysian Fields, which is
So
like,
good. Yeah.
yeah, it's amazing.
It is incredible. And I think just the complexity of the characters, like within, you know, there's not a ton of dialogue about, you know, the way people are feeling. So I think the way that Tennessee was able to get that across, like, you genuinely feel like you're in the brains of these people, and there aren't really that many conversations, especially because whenever Blanche is having a heart-to-heart, she's not actually telling the truth. So to almost feel like you can understand her and sort of empathize with her, without really understanding what's going on is a really interesting thing. And then there's this whole issue of Stella and Stanley's relationship, which reading it, I was like, this does not age well. Because you want to root for them, right? And it shows the complexity of a relationship. But, you know, the one place where I agreed with Blanche is she was like, that's unacceptable. You know, and she's so shocked by Stanley's behavior and Stella's not.
Yeah. It really is unacceptable.
Yeah.
And it is funny because we do root for them. When we're watching it or when we're reading it, we immediately, but that's also Tennessee Williams. He tends to like put like all these sort of depraved characters in one place, and you kind of
you have to root for some of them. Yeah.
You either have to go like, and this is what I find with this play in particular is I'm like, fuck, I'm like every single one of them. You know?
Yeah.
Age.
There's a part of you, yeah.
I have this delusion and I have this like simplicity about myself. And then, you know, like Mitch, he's got this like, where's the honesty? Where's the truth? And Tennessee Williams really does. He does this in all his plays where like the conversations are so not like the conversations we have. They're steeped in like symbolism and they're steeped in so much more. I mean, like the whole thing with the light, with Blanche and the light, you know, just you have this character who's completely steeped in her own illusions, and she can't be in light, she can't be in truth. She like she has to. I hate the sight of a bare bulb or whatever she said.
Yeah. Like the first, I mean, she says, I have the quote actually, she says, I can't stand a naked light bulb any more than I can a rude remark or a vulgar action. I mean, she won't even go, when she starts going out with Mitch, she won't go out with him before the sun goes down.
Yeah.
And only to dark places. And there's this moment when he turns on the lights and she's, like, she feels very exposed, and I think she's just not comfortable with who she is. And that is such a good metaphor, the lights, Blanche and those lights, yeah.
Amazing. And you totally like, you don't need her to tell you all the things she's feeling. You don't need her to tell you what's happening between her and all the other characters. You just need her to exist, and like Tennessee Williams takes care of everything.
He definitely, I feel like, has a way of making you sympathize with people and then kind of be like, why am I doing that? And I feel like, yeah, he kind of wants you to, like, tricks you into it almost in a way that makes you look at yourself and be like, is that because I am that way? And most times you're like, yeah, I am. And like, God damn it.
Takes you through a fucking roller coaster ride, you know?
Yeah.
Like, by the time that Stanley comes back up after the baby's born and does the unspeakable to Blanche, you know, he rapes her, you're not really feeling for Blanche at all at that point. You're kind of just like, who is this woman? And then what happens after that is
she's called crazy.
She's called crazy. And by her sister. And gets taken away. Like, he kind of just takes you on this journey and you're just like, oh my God, I'm all these people in one. And that's the other thing about this simplistic set too. They have nowhere to go. They're stuck there. Like, a doctor has to come in and pull you out and take you to a mental institution in order for you to get out of this set.
Right. And it's this lack of free will, and she, yeah, it is wild that, and just a reflection of like victim blaming. You know, she's literally called crazy and sent away. I mean, physically forced out of the house to go to a mental hospital when she's just experienced something so traumatic, and that lack of care, especially from another woman and from her own sister, to me was very like, I couldn't believe that was something. But again, yeah, Tennessee just like, he goes there.
He really does.
He goes there.
Like, whoa.
Yeah.
he did
I
that.
thought I had never read it, so I thought it was like, oh, cool, Marlon Brando. And like this really sick cover that I loved, and I found it in a vintage bookstore. And I was like, it's going to be like a fun, light read. I don't know why I thought Tennessee Williams was going to be a fun, light read, but
Yeah, none of it is.
no, I
He
don't think there's a single one.
even wrote really short plays. I think there's one I remember called "This Property is Condemned," and it's like 5 pages, and it's
Mm-hmm. Oh no,
oh, what happened?
they're like, yeah, I mean, his brain is wild, but he was also living in a time where kind of who he is was not socially acceptable, but he was open, he was very involved, and he also suffered a lot from mental illness and substance abuse himself, which I think, he sympathizes with these characters because some of them are him. And, even the substance abuse within this story, Blanche is drinking, Stanley's drinking.
Yeah,
And so I think he knows how to make them likable and form a connection between the reader and the characters, because like a lot of it is him.
it's
He's a real person.
too. Like he grew up quite young with an alcoholic father, and his sister. This was quite early on. Like this was one of his earlier plays. His
Yeah.
sister had schizophrenia.
Mm-hmm.
So and he ended up throughout the rest of his life taking earnings, and percentages of his earnings went to his sister's care.
Mm-hmm.
He definitely, you're so spot on. Like he has a sympathy for mental illness. He has an understanding of it. He has an involvement with it,
Mm-hmm.
from personal and from familiar, familiar,
Familiarity.
familial.
Familial.
Yeah.
Words. Words.
Uh,
Okay.
um,
You were somewhere amazing.
I know, yeah, but he definitely is this marvel for exactly what we talked about at the beginning, that holding the mirror up to nature about such things, mental illness especially, and then dropping it into like classism and sexism, and you're like, ah.
I know. I mean, it really hits everything in a very real way. So I'm in now. Gonna do all of Tennessee Williams, but I think I might have to space them out because it's a lot to digest.
Yes, I think you'll really like The Glass Menagerie, actually.
I bought that one as well. They also had that at this like cool vintage bookstore I found. So
It's gorgeous. The mother is such a crazy character.
yeah,
Yeah, she's remarkable. But
is it equally as sad and dark? Cool.
yes, it's funny though. Even
Right. Even streetcar, debatably, like there were moments where I was like, there's a humor in it.
yeah, and I realized that again watching the movie with Marlon Brando. That the beginning is fucking hysterical. When
Yeah.
he comes in and he's like, Napoleonic Code, the Napoleonic Code, and you're like, what is that guy? Like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Just keeps going on about this, and he's eating the whole time, and it's like,
Yeah.
and obviously, like when you start looking at it as like a study of character, you're like, oh, you repulse me. But in the moment, it's very
It's just very real. You're like, we all know like that
we all know
guy.
that. We all know.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
so true. Well, thank you for doing this. This is awesome.
Thanks for having me
And we
on.
might have to do Tennessee part 2 with you.
I'm so down. I'm so down.
And I'm gonna make you perform a scene next time.
By myself? A scene by myself?
Yeah, you have to play every character.
What? Oh, wow. All
You
right.
can choose. You can choose the
All
scene.
right.
But you're every.
Thank you.
I'm giving you the artistic freedom.
That sounds really exciting, and I just want to again
I'm gonna freak.
wish Kaia happy birthday.
Thank you.
I wish you nothing but the best. I hope to see you very soon.
I
And
love you. I'll
thanks.
see you soon.
Yeah.
Anytime. You're welcome back.
All
I love you. Bye. Oh, well, thank you guys for watching again. It's always so fun to do book clubs with friends because I just feel like there's so much that you can relate and talk about, and this is kind of the stuff that Brandon and I talk about anyways. So thank you, Brandon, for being on here, for being so intelligent and articulate and wonderful and everything. And we will be back with another book club. I'm very excited for the next one, so I will give you guys lots of time to read in advance. Have a wonderful weekend, and thank you again for wishing me a happy birthday. Thank you, Brandon, for my balloon. I'm sad I can't be there to like hold it, but I'm feeling the energy, so thank you. Bye.